What do you think of when you hear the word gymnastics? Do you think of Simone Biles dancing across the floor, mixing in high-flying tumblings and winning 4 Olympic gold medals? Or do you think of these huge muscular guys swinging around the high bar and sprinting down the ball runway? For me, when I hear the word gymnastics, I think about 17 years of my life spent on a 10 by 17 foot trampoline. Now I know what some of you may be thinking. Trampoline is not a sport. It's something I had in my backyard as a kid. However, this is not the same black circle trampoline that you had in your backyard. Trampoline is a branch of gymnastics that is steadily growing and rising in popularity. Throughout this speech, I will talk to you about the history of the sport of trampoline and the invention itself and its integration into the Olympics. I will then talk about the breakdown of the sport, how it's judged and how the competition criteria is, and talk a little bit about the direction the sport is heading as well. So, in order to understand the sport of trampoline, we must first go back to the man who started it all, George Neeson. George Neeson, when he was 16 years old, in 1930, he decided that he went to a trapeze show and he saw a trapeze artist jumping into a net below, and he thought to himself, what if they could continue to bounce and continue to flip? So he went home to his parents' garage at 16 years old and began tinkering around and made a steel framework with a canvas sheet over it, and he called it the bouncing rig. Several years later, he went to the University of Iowa and partnered with his coach, Larry Griswold, as you see in that middle picture there. They decided to build a more flexible contraption with a nylon sheet. After the invention of what is now known as the trampoline, it was still called the bouncing rig at that time, they traveled around the world showing off their new invention, and it began to take roots in several European nations as well as Russia. After a visit to Mexico, they decided to change the name to trampoline after they heard the word for diving board, which is el trampolín. Then they trademarked it. So the span from the invention of the trampoline, its development, and then finally its integration into the Olympics was a span of about 70 years. In 1997, the International Olympic Committee met and in Lausanne, decided to add the sport of trampoline into the 2000 Sydney Olympics. The reason they did this was because in 1964, they had the first World Championships for trampoline. After that, they just began developing more and more inventive trampolines to where they could bounce higher, do more flips, different things like that. And it began to become a more popular, more crazy sport, and so they decided to add it to the Olympics in 2000. So, next I'm going to break down the sport for you and tell you a little bit more about it, but first I'll show you a visual so you can understand it a little bit more. So this is Rosie McLennan. She's the 2012 and 2016 Olympic champion. This is her competing at one of the world championships recently.